Hey guys, welcome back to Grade 11 Biology series. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the kingdom fungi. And I'll actually start a presentation with a joke. That is, why is the mushroom always invited to parties? And that's because he's a fungi. The punchline works because fungi, the kingdom I'm talking about right now, is pronounced similarly to fungi in English. So without further ado, let's start with the overall of the fungi. Seeing fungi growing on wet leaves or in fallen log, you might assume they're some type of plant, but evidence shows that fungi are more closely related to animals and even humans than they are to plants. And fungi do not undergo photosynthesis because they're heterotrophic eukaryotes, and they will release powerful enzymes to break down organic matter into nutrients outside of their body. And this process is actually called extracellular digestion, which I'm going to mention later in this episode. As a result, they will absorb the nutrients from the environment. Second, fungi can be either multicellular or unicellular. For example, the mushrooms or the black fungus that we eat, they are considered multicellular. I'm going to give you guys some examples of unicellular fungi along the video. And third, fungi provide essential services for ecosystem. They play an important role in decomposition, recycling nutrients, and soil maintenance. And they have two major structures, which are hyphae and mycelia, which I'm going to teach later in this episode. And all fungi release spores to reproduce. I hope I can talk about the reproduction of fungi in this episode, but probably not. I'm probably going to move that part into my genetic unit. Last but not least, climate change has an impact on fungi diversity. And this happens not only to fungi, but also to every single kingdom or organism that lives on the earth. Fungi are mainly composed of hyphae, which are tiny threads of cytoplasm surrounded by a plasma membrane and covered by a cell wall. So the definition is pretty confusing, but don't worry about it because we're going to be looking at the structure of hyphae in the next slide. So if you zoom in hyphae 1,000 times, here's how they look like. And these hyphae can form networks that exist in both underground and the above ground parts of the fungus. And the underground portion is called the mycelium, and the above ground structure is known as the fruiting body, or you can just simply call it body, which includes the cap and the stalk. And this part is what we commonly recognize as a mushroom. Although the fruiting body appears separate, it is actually an extension of the mycelium, not a distinct structure. Unlike animals, fungi are not able to move. However, the mycelium compensates for this by growing rapidly and expanding throughout its food source. Moving on to hyphae. So for this part, for non-AP students, all you have to memorize is that hyphae can form a network which is called mycelium. But for the AP students, or for the ones who want to challenge themselves, you also have to memorize that there are two types of hyphae, which are septate hyphae and conocytic hyphae, and both of which are found in multicellular fungi, but they're different in their structure. So for the septate hyphae, these have cross walls, which is septum in this case. And they, or septum or septa, will divide hyphae into individual cells. And each cell has at least one nucleus. It can have multiple nucleus, maybe two. I'm not sure if they can have three, but at least one nucleus. And there's also small pores in between two individual cells that allow cytoplasm to flow between the cells. And for the second type of hyphae, which is cynocytic hyphae, these do not have septa, making them one continuous or gigantic massive cytoplasm with multiple nuclei. Fungi undergo a digestion process called extracellular digestion. As you can tell from the word extracellular, this process occurs outside of the cell. So basically, the enzyme is secreted to digest food externally and then absorbed by fungus through hyphae or the spreading mycelium. So the digestion process of fungus is very similar from what we have. The digestion process we have is internal digestion, where food broken down in digestive system, like internally, and then absorbed by cells. And here I'm going to attach the link of, I believe it's called digestive system, which is in my grade 10 biology series to help you remember what's happening in our digestive system. And for the reproduction of fungi, I plan to teach that part in the genetic unit, which probably going to be 3 videos away. But for now, all you have to know is that fungi can reproduce either asexually or sexually, and the common asexual reproduction include fragmentation and spores. And the sexual reproduction of fungi is through spores. But now I've got some major phyla for fungi for you. Well, forget about the reproductive structure. I don't think we're gonna cover that part in this course. And the first phylum we're gonna be looking at today is called Zygomycota. An example from the phylum Zygomycota is Rhizopus stolonifer, which is the common mold that we see, like the greenish mold that we see on our bread. And the second phylum is Mycota. And examples include mushrooms, club fungi, and rust. And last but not least, Ascomycota. And examples in these phylum included yeast, truffles, and morels. Fungi are very important to us because they're the natural decomposers, and they can also recycle nutrients. And we can use fungi to do a lot of things. We can use them to make alcohol or make food such as bread, soy sauce, and we can also eat certain type of fungi such as mushroom or black fungi, right? And fungi are also model organisms for biochemical and genetic studies. And the reason is that their genetic sequence is pretty similar to ours, to humans. But at the same time, certain type of fungi can cause problems, like very serious problems. They can destruct food, lumber, and clothes. Also, I want to talk a little bit about penicillium. Well, I noticed that in some old textbooks they put penicillium in the phylum Deuteromycota. But in my textbook that I'm using right now, they just totally removed the phylum Deuteromycota. I mean, that is incorrect because at that time, scientists did not discover that penicillium could actually reproduce sexually. But now, scientists just moved them in the phylum Ascomycota. Anyways, so the fungus called penicillium is used to produce the antibiotic penicillium. So penicillium makes penicillium. And what they do is they kill bacteria by interfering with their ability to build cell walls. Well, now a lot of bacteria can develop resistance by producing an enzyme called beta-lactamase, which destroys the surface of penicillium. So without a surface, they are not able to kill the bacteria. So there are actually a lot of fungi that form symbiotic relationship with plants. So an example would be mycorrhiza. This fungus can grow on the roof of plants. And what they do is they absorb mineral from the soil and release them into the roots. And in return, this fungus receives food molecules like sugar, starches from the plants. Now, I want you guys to do some research on lichens and figure out the symbiotic relationships between lichens and the trees. And that's the end of this lesson, and I'll see you in the next episode.